Sinister numbers haunting my skin, a spine-chilling countdown to an unexplainable terror revealed. Clara Jones prided herself on being the strong one, the single mother who fought every night shift in the ER with tenacity, battling exhausted cries and the raw edges of humanity. But as the soft glow of her phone illuminated her room, she felt unease creeping in like humidity on a summer night. The text read simply, a countdown beginning from 10, and her heart quickened. Just a prank, she thought, pushing back the fear clutching at her throat. But as the digits ticked down, whispers echoed in her mind, hissing and slithering like snakes beneath her skin. With each numeral that faded into oblivion, Clara was hit by a surge of dread she couldn't shake off. It was just another shift, another evening of shuffling working hours and patched-up children. The familiar quiet of suburban Maplewood felt even more suffocating as she turned off her phone. Outside, the heat of the day clung stubbornly to the evening air. She expected to hear the laughter of children and realized she wasn't alone. But darkness lurked ominously, thickening like a villain waiting for a chance to strike. She murmured a quiet, "Not tonight," clutching her pillow tightly. Days passed, but the countdown haunted her. That night she saw shadows darting at the edges of her vision, flickers that vanished the moment she turned to look. At first she doubted her sanity. But the whispers grew louder, the kind that send chills racing down your spine. Is it the fatigue, she wondered, but in her gut she felt this was something else. She confided in Mr. Reynolds, nodding to him while tears pooled in her eyes. It's just the stress. That glint in his eye, once inviting, now chilled her. What did he know? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. On the night the countdown hit 0, panic clawed at her chest. Waking in a cold sweat, Clara looked at her arms, eyes widening as grotesque markings twisted and writhed like serpents across her skin. Numbers, jagged and dark, throbbed angrily against her pale flesh. Heart racing, she recalled whispered tales from the neighbors, families that disappeared like smoke in the air, taken by shadows into the unknown. Cold dread settled in her bones. The police had laughed her fears away. The neighbors refused to speak. Clara was left to piece together the fragmented puzzle while the clock ticked ominously, a taunting specter in her home. Had she been wrong to trust them? Frightened, she grasped her children, Sam and Lily, who were blissfully unaware of the monster lurking just outside their safety. The nightly darkness pressed against the windows, suffocating and invasive. With every breath that filled the room, Clara felt the tightening grip of fear, feeling betrayed by the community she thought she knew. The countdown may have ended, but the clock of horror had only just begun. She felt time slipping away as she pondered if survival meant confronting the smiling neighbor. Was trust ever a real option? As dread unfolded around her, the haunting air whispered, "You are next." And Clara realized there was no hiding from this terror, only fight. Clara's heart raced as she stared at the pulsating numbers on her arms. They felt alive, as if the very essence of fear was now a part of her. She couldn't shake the feeling that this was the way it was always meant to be. Each mark a step closer to something greater or something far worse. "What do I do?" she whispered into the void, the shadows in her room seeming to lean closer, drawn to her fear. She thought of the children, their innocent laughter echoing through her mind like sweet music, but how long could she keep them safe? A shattering crash came from the kitchen, rattling the night like a sudden storm. Clara's breath hitched as fear flooded her veins, an icy grip that rendered her momentarily paralyzed. Shadows danced at the edge of her vision. Was it the darkness itself coming alive? With a shaky breath, she pushed herself upright and crept towards the source of the sound, each step louder than the last. The kitchen was a mess. A chair lay on its side, and the table was cluttered with the remnants of their last meal, a half-eaten sandwich and a glass of milk. "Sam? Lily?" she called, her voice trembling. Silence answered her, thick and suffocating. The hairs on the back of her neck bristled as the temperature dropped, as if something sinister had infiltrated her home. She bent down to right the chair when she caught sight of something. Movement. A thick shadow flickered just beyond the threshold of the kitchen, swirling with malevolence. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but that was not an option. Not now. "Get away!" she shouted, gripping a spatula like a weapon. The shadow halted, then elongated, growing closer, a nightmare given form. "This is my home," Clara yelled, heart pounding in her ears. The darkness pulsed once, a heartbeat of evil. It seemed to retreat, but only for a moment, before a sinister whisper, low and serpentine, dripped through the silence. "Numbers don't lie." Clara's skin prickled with the remnants of the count that had haunted her. 10, 9, 8. The countdown echoed in her mind, a sinister rhythm that promised an end. Was it warning? The implications sent her spinning. "I have to protect my kids," she muttered, hands now trembling as she re-entered the hallway. Her thoughts raced ahead of her. She had to reach Sam and Lily. She hurried up the stairs to their room, but dread twisted in her gut. What if the shadows had their eyes on them? The door creaked open, but the room was still, silent. Lights danced in the darkness, flickering as if they too were alive. Clara stepped inside, breath caught in her throat. Kids? The air felt thick, electric. Her eyes darted around, searching every corner, praying to find them safe. And then she blinked. There they were, sitting quietly on the bed, eyes wide, staring at her with a mix of fear and understanding that sent a chill down her spine. Their skin was marked too, numbers tracing their arms like a grotesque family crest. Her heart plummeted. "What did you do?" she gasped, reaching for them. "What did they do to you?" But instead of answering, their expressions shifted, vacant and hollow, as if they were no longer fighting against the darkness. Clara's mind raced. Was the dream truly over, or had it only just begun? With a throbbing urgency, the shadows closed in, whispering secrets meant only for her. "I'm coming for you." And that was when Clara realized the countdown wasn't just for her. It had begun again. The danger was not in the marks, but in what they had awakened. As she turned towards the door, the darkness responded, every shadow shifting, a melody of malicious intent surrounding her. It was time to confront the end. But one question tore through the chaos. Who was truly in control now? The shadows undulated as Clara stood frozen, paralyzed by dread. Sam and Lily sat there, their glassy eyes reflecting a danger she could barely comprehend. Whatever had taken hold of her children was powerful, suffocating. "What's wrong? Talk to me." Her voice cracked as she stretched her arm toward them, desperate to break the spell that held them captive. But they remained silent, their bodies tense and unmoving, as if a cold wind pushed down on them. "Please," she murmured, stepping closer. At once, the air thickened, growing dense with an unseen weight. The numbers on their arms began to glow faintly, pulsating in rhythm with Clara's own racing heart. And then, Clara understood. The countdown wasn't merely for her. They were all part of it, like strands woven into a dark tapestry. 8. The whisper echoed again, the shadows surrounding her thickening, tinged with malice. "Get out!" She screamed the words. They didn't come from the depths of her being. They punctured the suffocating quiet, raw and instinctual. "Get away from my kids!" The room flickered around her. The walls pulsed like a living entity,
things scuttling beneath the floorboards. She felt more than saw the darkness closing in, its breath hot against her skin. The shadow began to shake with rage, a menacing growl reverberating through the space. "Sam! Lily! We have to go!" Clara shouted again, but Sam, Lily.
The chilling shadows answered first. Tendrils reached for her children, curling like fingers grasping for flesh. "Mom, we're fine!" Their voices came simultaneously, soft, eerie. "Don't be scared. It isn't time yet." A scream clawed at Clara's throat, but she swallowed it down. "You don't understand! We can't stay here!" She flung herself toward them, but the shadows deflected her. 5. The count echoed louder now, a cacophony of doom as the darkness tightened its grip. Clara stumbled backward, her feet slipping on the floor as shadows rose in waves. "No, no, stop!" she cried. Suddenly, a cold voice seeped from the shadows, chilling her to the core. Your time was never yours to begin with. It surrounded her, slithering into her mind. Each word clung to her like an icy velvet. The numbers throbbed harder now, and a rush of panic gripped her heart. Clara shot a glance back at her children, their eyes locked on hers, filled with something darker than fear, resignation. When panic clawed at her the hardest, a new urgency surged to life. She bolted from the room, sprinting down the hall as her muscles screamed with the effort, propelled by a primal need to escape the grasp of the darkness closing in. Shouts erupted behind her, a chorus of sinister whispers rising to drown out her hope. 7, 6, the countdown echoed back with sadistic glee. She ripped through the house, searching for a way out, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Outside, the night was anything but calm. The wind howled, carrying with it a malevolent sound, a chant that seemed to pour from the earth itself. Clara stumbled into the yard, thoughts clouded with fear. The world around her felt warped, like something was watching, shivering in anticipation of her next move. "What do I do?" she gasped, glancing back at the house, her haven turned tomb. 4, 3, the voice taunted her, and she realized she wasn't just running from shadows, she was running towards a deadline. Clara spun, her resolve solidifying. The numbers called to her. "No more!" she shouted, fists clenched. "I will save my children." With renewed fury, she stepped forward to face the impending doom. Would she fight for her family or succumb to the darkness? But as she gathered her strength for the battle ahead, a chilling realization washed over her. What if the shadows weren't just in her home, but rooted deep within, in her blood, too? The air tasted bitter. The countdown loomed. When the final number fell, what horrors awaited her? The world shifted. Clara stood motionless, the yard falling into a chilling silence. The shadows poured from the house, filling the yard like ink spilled over a page, darkening everything in their wake. She could feel them, swirling at her ankles, inviting her back into their cold embrace. 1. The final whisper rang out, slicing through the darkness. A blood-curdling roar erupted from the house, and Clara's heart raced. The shadows pulsed and twisted, forming a dense mass that rose from the ground like a monstrous wave, eagerly reaching for her. Fear clutched her throat. She wanted to scream, but the sound died in her mouth. "Clara." The voice was soft, devoid of warmth. It slithered around her, wrapping her in a thick fog of panic. Her children's eyes glinted from the shadows, now brighter than before, a merciless reminder of what she had to save. "Come back," the voice whispered, so close it was almost comforting. "You know you can't escape what's inside you." Clara shook her head, as if denying it could change the truth. "No, I won't let you take them," she cried, her voice strained and consumed by the tendrils that sought her out. The wind howled louder, echoing her torment. She turned again toward the house, desperate, frantically seeking a way past the looming shadows. There had to be a way, some hidden path that hadn't been swallowed by darkness. She needed to reach her children. "Sam, Lily," she shouted, her voice breaking. "You need to fight. Come to me." In response, the shadows writhed, as if considering her words. For a moment, she thought she saw the briefest flicker of movement, but it was swallowed back into the primordial darkness. "Mom," Sam said, his voice echoing as if from a distance. "We can't. It's so comforting here." "It's not real," Clara's desperation escalated. "You're not fine. You need to listen to me." The shadows twisted violently, and cold laughter echoed through the yard. "Two dead ends," the entity taunted, its presence seeping into her mind. "Will you choose your children, or face the truth of who you are?" Clara's heart thundered in her chest. She ran her hands over her arms, the numbers on her skin glowing like molten fire. "What do you mean?" she demanded, battling a rising horror as the answer gathered at the tip of her tongue. The shadows flickered, and she glimpsed visions painted in despair. Her past, her choices, moments marred by darkness and pain. Each replayed memory twisted, revealing something sinister lurking beneath the surface. "Look closer," the voice whispered again, softer, almost inviting. "What did you think you could outrun, Clara?" The air crackled and snapped like a thunderstorm, filling her with an overwhelming sense of foreboding. A tremor shook her limbs as the realization crept in, sinking its teeth into her resolve. "I'm not like them," she gasped, the cold truth chilling her blood. The shadows surged forward, hungry for her acknowledgement, for her surrender. She could feel the warmth of the past rolling into her future, a slippery slope leading toward doom. Clara clenched her teeth, determination flooding her veins. "You don't own me!" With a growl that reverberated like an earthquake, she pulled against the tide of darkness, her body feeling like a ragged rope stretched to its limits. The shadows clashed, swirling around her, until suddenly a bright light erupted from within. The brightness engulfed her, illuminating the yard. "Mom!" Sam in her chest. Every misstep, every time she let them down, they came rushing back to remind her that she had chosen her own demons over them for far too long. "Mom!" Sam's voice was a plea. "No!" she shouted back, grounding herself. "I'm coming! I will fight!" As she summoned the fiery strength, Clara felt the numbers on her skin glowing brighter, responding to her will. Despite the shadow's grip, she forced her limbs to move, pushing against the encroaching blackness. She stumbled forward, every step racking her body, but she refused to relent. "I'm not afraid of you!" The darkness recoiled, but then lashed out with a torrent of icy fear, clawing at her mind, a desperate bid to reclaim her soul. "Then face your reflection." In an instant, the shadows twisted and morphed, revealing glimpses of faces, twisted, hungry, filled with a pain she recognized too well. Her own face grinned back at her within the shadows, a reflection of shattered hopes and bitter betrayals. Heart racing, she fell to her knees. "No, this is not me!" she shouted. But doubt gnawed at her resolve, the weariness of the fight sapping her strength. "Save them, Clara, or lose everything." In that moment, the clouds parted, and the faintest glimmer of hope emerged. "I will find the light," she mumbled, gripping the earth beneath her, fighting against the tide of self-loathing and darkness. She had to. Clara closed her eyes, and with a force of will, she shouted the words that could unleash it all. "I choose my truth!" A pulse of light exploded from her chest, bright and furious, shattering the shadow's grip for a heartbeat. But the darkness was not finished. The haunting remnants slithered back, whispering all the doubts she tried to bury, lessons of her failures, the consequences of her past. Will you stay or break free? Clara gasped. This was it. The moment stretched, dripping with the weight of every choice she had made. What would she leave behind? As she wrestled with the swirling mass of fear, she wondered if she possessed the strength to fight not just for her children, but for herself. What sacrifice would it take to reclaim her soul? In the distance, the house loomed, dark and sinister, pulsing with life as the shadows beckoned her home again. And as they encroached, she had one final question. Could she truly face the monster within, or would she surrender everything she loved? The shadows surged like a wave crashing over her, thick and suffocating. Clara recoiled, the light from her heart flickering like a dying ember. She blinked against the darkness, her breath hitching as fear clawed at her throat like an iron vice. The whispers intensified, ringing in her ears, a cacophony that pulled at the fabric of her sanity. Face your truth, Clara, or lose everything. The entity's voice coiled around her, as cold as the grave. Every misdeed, every moment of weakness swirled in her mind. She staggered back, bumping against the wall, the numbers on her skin flaring painfully. Each numeral told a story: loss, regret, guilt. They writhed as if mocking her resolve. "Sam! Emily!" she shouted, her voice a croak amid the void. The house seemed alive, the very walls thumping with a heartbeat, vibrating, pulsating with malevolent energy. It was a predator, stalking her and waiting for the moment she would falter. Then, amidst the swirling darkness, she heard her children's voices again. "Mom!" They were faint, yet they pierced through the fog of despair. That sound, more than anything, ignited a fire within her. "Mom, help us!" Their pleas cut through the haze. With renewed urgency, Clara straightened up, grabbing onto that fragile hope. She was their protector. The shadows writhed, and she met their charge head-on, summoning every ounce of bravery she possessed. "I won't let you take them!" Clara roared, her voice echoing off the walls like thunder. Colors burst through the inky gloom, colors of her children's laughter, of days filled with love. The darkness faltered, momentarily retreating, as if stung by her defiance. But the shadows gathered again, creeping back with a hiss. "You cannot protect them, Clara. You are weak. You are the monster." "No!" she screamed. "I am their mother." Each breath felt like a battle. Her heart thundered in her chest, desperation mixing with raw determination. The light within surged again, brightening the room. She felt the warmth against her skin, burning away the cold dread of failure. Then she saw it, a door, barely visible through the haze, ancient and weathered, splintered wood framed in the swirling shadows. It loomed ahead, flickering with hope. This was her way out. As Clara ran toward it, the shadows clawed at her legs, a torrential pull that threatened to drag her back into despair. She stumbled, falling to her knees, fingers scraping at the floor, desperately longing to break free of the grip holding her hostage. "I choose my truth!" she screamed again, each word punctuated by her heart's frantic rhythm. With a force that felt otherworldly, she pulled herself up, feeling the strength of all mothers, Every sacrifice, every tear, every sacrifice swirled into one powerful surge. She lunged toward the door, the light spilling from her like a beacon of salvation. But as she approached, the laughter returned, chilling and filled with malice. You think the door leads to freedom? It's just another trap. Clara hesitated. Was it? The air thickened, dread gripping her throat like a vice. Was she prepared to face whatever lay beyond? "Mom!" Sam's voice echoed, raw with fear. "We're counting on you." That was it. Clara couldn't falter, not for herself, not for the shadows. She thrust the door open, stepping into light, into uncertainty. But the moment she crossed the threshold, the ground beneath her shook, the dark howls intensified, and she felt the shadows clawing at her again, trying to pull her back. Will you escape your darkness, or fall deeper into despair?
The door slammed shut behind her. Clara stood at the edge of an unknown void. What awaited her in this new realm? Would she discover the truth that would save her family, or the ultimate betrayal? The moment Clara stepped into the light, a jolt surged through her. For a split second, she felt weightless, as if she had escaped the suffocating grasp of the shadows. But just as quickly, the sensation faltered, and she dropped painfully onto a cold, hard surface. The bright light faltered, flickering like a cheap bulb before dimming to twilight around her. She cringed, shaking off the disorientation and pushing herself up to glance around. The air was thick with a damp chill, and the smell of rot suffocated her senses. It was a stark contrast from the warmth of the darkness she had just fled. Panic set in as she struggled to make sense of her surroundings. "Sam! Emily!" she shouted, her voice echoing, yet swallowed up by the oppressive silence. Worn stone walls surrounded her like a tomb, the dampness seeping in through cracks that snaked lazily across the surfaces. Small, flickering torches lined the walls, struggling to pierce the darkness beyond. Each flicker seemed to taunt her, whispering tales of the horrors lurking within the gloom. "Where are you?" she breathed, desperation clawing at her bet. From the depths of the shadowy corners, she heard it again, a soft, childlike giggle, followed quickly by a whimper. Her heart raced as she spun around, straining to pinpoint the source. The sound echoed and twisted into something more sinister. "Mom, help! Emily!" she shouted, but her voice trembled. The sound echoed back, distorted, as if mocking her. Was it the shadows mocking her once more? An image flared in her mind. Past mistakes, lost time spent worrying over trivial matters. "Focus, Clara," she whispered to herself. Her breath came in sharp bursts, grounding herself in the reality that she had to find her children. Ahead lay an arched doorway, draped in darkness. She took tentative steps towards it, her determination battling against the crawling dread that wrapped itself around her like a snake. Just as she reached for the door, a sudden chill swept across her skin. The numbers etched on her arms throbbed like a heartbeat. They pulsed with intensity, and the whispers returned, louder now, more insistent. "Face your truth, Clara. The numbers hold your fate." She glanced at her arms, the figures swirling with energy, and terror gripped her anew. What did they mean? Were they her lifeline, or a countdown to something more terrible? She felt their implications as a weight pressing against her soul. "Sam!" With her heart hammering, she pushed through the door, a fleeting resolve coursing through her. The room she entered bordered on surreal. Hazy shapes loom, twisting and turning, both familiar and foreign. A low murmur filled the air, echoing her children's names, warped into something monstrous. "Mom, we're here!" Their voices brightened her spirit, but each word cracked. Soon, the voices seemed scattered, lost in the chaos of the room. She darted forward, weaving between shadows that danced and prowled, always one step ahead, yet never close enough.
Clara. The entity she had sensed earlier materialized, shadowy and imposing. You can't resist your destiny. The numbers reveal your weakness. No, she defied, anger surging through her. She took a step closer, tightening her fists. I choose my strength. Strength? It hissed, laughter echoing endlessly. Your strength is an illusion, Clara. Look beyond. The ultimate betrayal is waiting. The shadows recoiled and surged forth, wrapping around her limbs, pulling her closer to the entity. It was suffocating, thick as fog, dragging her down. She clawed against them, fighting with everything inside her. A sense of vulnerability washed over her, a reminder of the weight she bore. The numbers, her sins, everything she had tried to escape. Unlock the truth, or lose it all. As the shadows began to collapse in, Clara felt the churn within. A primal instinct awakened, the urge to protect her children eclipsed all fear. I will not lose them, she screamed, her voice echoing into the darkness. But the air thickened, and the darkness shimmered, ready to pull her under. Would she find the truth that could save her children, or would the shadows consume her completely? The shadows surged, relentless and cold, pulling Clara deeper into their grasp. She fought with every ounce of her strength, instinct driving her to break free, to reach her children. The entity hovered closer, its form shifting like smoke, a grotesque grin splitting its face. Feel the weight of your choices, Clara, it hissed, its voice a sickly sweet whisper that sent shivers down her spine. You've neglected your truth. Now it comes for you. Clara's heart raced, a wild drum in her chest. No, I refuse to let you win. She twisted, the edges of her vision blurring as she struggled against the shadows tightening around her. Your children can't save you, it taunted, its laughter biting through the gloom. Stop, she yelled, the word crashing against the oppressive atmosphere like waves against a rocky shore. There it was again, a flicker of hope in the distance, a sliver of light, bright and warm, illuminating the edges of the dark room. She let that light guide her, grasping onto it like a lifeline. With a sudden burst of determination, Clara lunged toward it, pushing against the grip of the shadows. As she tore through the darkness, a scream from behind froze her mid-motion. "Mom!" It was Emily's voice, clear yet filled with terror. Clara turned, desperation clawing at her throat. "Stay close, I'm coming!" she shouted, her voice a blend of urgency and fear. Driven by love, she forced herself forward. The shadows writhed and twisted, shrieking in anger. The light seemed to pulse in rhythm with the numbers on her arms, a beat of undeniable energy. They glowed brighter, illuminating the horrors around her, the twisted faces of regret, the monstrous manifestations of her fears trapped in the shadows. Each flicker revealed new horrors, memories she long buried, rising like ghosts. "Mom, please!" Emily's voice splintered into the air, now desperate, fragmented, almost real. Clara's heart dropped, realization crashing down over her. She needed to confront the truth her past had constructed, otherwise the shadows would take not only her, but her children too. "No, I won't let the dark win," she screamed, the words ripping from her throat like a primal roar. She focused, pulling the weight of her past into the forefront of her mind, the faces of her children shining brightly through her tears. With every memory, the warmth of the light spread, pushing against the cold darkness wrapping around her. "Face me!" The entity recoiled, anger bubbling in its voice. "Face the truth!" And then it struck her, a memory too painful to bear, yet necessary.
The day she had let doubt and fear slip into her heart, pushing Sam and Emily away when they needed her most. She had to embrace it, her mistakes, her pain. The raw truth hung before her like a dreadful shroud. "Enough!" Clara howled, channeling all her rage and sorrow, gathering it like a weapon. She thrust her hands forward, palms open, the light exploding outward as she faced the entity. "You have no power over me. My children are worth fighting for." The shadows screamed, a cacophony of torment as the light expanded, swallowing them whole. She felt the grasp on her limbs release, the thick fog breaking apart, scattering like ashes in the wind. Yet within the encroaching light, another voice surfaced, faint but unmistakable. "Clara, help us!" It was Sam. The thought of her children ignited a fear so profound it cut through the diminishing shadows. Every instinct screamed that they were still in danger, trapped somewhere within. With renewed vigor, Clara leaped forward, the light carving a path through the gloom as she called out, "Where are you?" But the silence that followed sent a shiver creeping up her spine. The room grew colder, darker. "Mom, where are you?" The echoes of their voices grew distant, swirling in the air like ghosts of lost dreams. And then, silence. Clara stood alone, panting. Her breaths were sharp and quick, the weight of dread pressing down on her. Where had they gone? The light flickered helplessly now, shadows regrouping at its edges. She stumbled back, battling the fear creeping into her heart. She had faced the shadows, only to be left alone again. What had she done wrong? What awaited her behind the next door? The labyrinth expanded around her, each path obscured in darkness, each choice a trap. Could she find them before it was too late? The weight of the numbers pulsed again, foreboding, echoing through the silence. Unlock the truth or lose it all. The heartbeat of her fate drummed ominously on her skin. Clara's
breath caught in her throat. How many chances would she be given before the ultimate darkness claimed them all? And the shadows stirred again, ready to ensnare her once more. The oppressive darkness thickened around Clara, suffocating every breath she took. Panic clawed at her throat, each heartbeat echoing in the hollow silence. She could feel the shadows creeping closer, their cold breath crawling across her skin like icy fingers. Where were her children? Their desperate cries twisted through her mind, urging her to act. "Emily! Sam!" she shouted, but only silence answered. A heavy dread settled in her gut, tightening like a vice. As she stood frozen, the faint light pulsed, almost like a heartbeat, coaxing her to follow. With her hands trembling, Clara took a step forward. The textured floor felt unfamiliar, a wave of anxiety washing over her as she realized she was no longer in the room. The space unfurled before her, a vast, endless hallway stretching into a sea of black, eerily illuminated by flickering sconces that barely cast away the dark. Every instinct told her to run, but the fear of losing her children kept her rooted in place. She closed her eyes for a fleeting moment, summoning the strength she desperately needed. "I will find you," she whispered, determination settling into her bones. She stepped down the hallway, the light guiding her like a beacon. The walls whispered secrets, memories threaded with half-formed faces that stared out from the dark, mouths moving soundlessly. Clara shook her head, the dread intensifying, as if the place itself was alive, feeding off her fear. "Are you scared, Clara?" a voice hissed, slithering out from the shadows. It was tinged with malice, crawling under her skin like a parasite. The darkness shifted, a fleeting shape flickering just out of sight. "You should be." Clara's spine stiffened. She pressed forward, fueled by the need to find her children. "Mom, where are you?" Emily's voice rang out again, closer this time, pleading. Clara's heart raced. She felt the pull of her child's desperation, guiding her, drawing her further down the shadowy corridor, where echoes of past mistakes mingled with vivid flashes from her mind. Memories sprang forth unbidden, regrets, haunted moments, and every tear spilled in silence. Clara's breath quickened, the walls closing in. The dark was alive, swirling around her like a living creature, clawing at her sanity. Face your choices. Whatever you do, don't look back. A chilling warning. She stumbled, glancing over her shoulder. There it was again, the grotesque entity, its laughter ricocheting off the walls, a cacophony of tormented souls. Clara's skin pricked with fear as its eyes glinted with the sadistic thrill of the hunt. Your past is pursuing you, Clara. It was close now, breath like smoke brushing her neck. You cannot hide from it, nor can you escape. "Leave me alone!" she screamed, pushing against the weight of memories pressing in from all sides. She had to keep moving, keep searching, no matter the shadows that threatened to crush her spirit. Light flickered, momentarily blinding her as she lunged forward. Suddenly, the floor beneath her shifted, plunging into darkness. Clara yelped, a drop of panic surging through her body as she tumbled down, her gut wrenching. When she finally landed, a cold dampness enveloped her, the air rich with decay. The shift was jarring, disorienting. She gasped, trying to regain her bearings, the flickering light now reduced to a dim glow. "Sam! Emily!" she called out, her voice hoarse and echoing off the rough walls. And then she froze. The faint glow illuminated a figure huddled in the corner. Clara's heart soared, but it twisted into knots as her eyes adjusted. It was a child, a shadow of her son, but twisted and distorted, staring up at her with those same haunting eyes. "Mom, help us!" No, this wasn't real. Clara shook her head violently, the weight of despair heavy on her heart. "You're not him. You're not my Sam." The figure smiled, but it was cruel, hollow. "But I am. You did this, Clara. You abandoned us." With those words, the darkness surged again, rising like a tide, threatening to pull her under. Clara turned, scrambling for an escape, the shadows magnetizing, hungry for her fear. Face your truth or lose it all. Each heartbeat thudded against her eardrums, drowning her in terror. Clara shot down the tunnel, racing against time as the entity's laughter reverberated behind her, promising an end beyond comprehension. A door loomed ahead, framed in struggling light, a way out, yet what lay beyond was a mystery she was terrified to confront. Clara reached for the handle, her hope and dread colliding. Would the path lead to salvation or a deeper descent into darkness? The door creaked open, revealing a swirling mist of confusion and dread, beckoning her to step through. One last chance. Clara hesitated, the weight of her choices holding her back. The shadows lunged again, wrapping around her legs, pulling her into their cold embrace. But Clara took a deep breath, letting the warmth of fierce love ground her. She had to find them, not just for herself, but for them. Could she unlock the door to the truth before it chose her fate? And as Clara stepped into the unknown, the shadows trembled with anticipation, waiting to see what she would do next. The moment Clara stepped through the door, she was met by blinding light that swallowed her whole. The sensation was both exhilarating and terrifying, as if she were being rebirthed into a new reality. She fell to her knees, gasping for air, but the light was warm, wrapping around her like an embrace. "Mom!" A familiar cry cut through the illumination. Clara's heart soared as she stood back up, squinting into the bright expanse.
A silhouette danced at the edge of her vision, golden light illuminating the small figure. "Emily!" she shouted, going towards the shape. The light pulsing around her felt like freedom.
Each step bringing warmth back into her chilled bones. She could finally see clearly, and there they were. Emily and Sam standing together, their faces aglow with hope. But the shadows clung to her like a second skin, swirling ominously at the edges of the brightness. Clara could sense their hunger, their desire to drag her back into despair. "Mom, please!" Sam cried out, reaching for her. "Help us!" Clara's breath caught. "I'm here! I'm coming!" She rushed forward, fear merging with determination, knowing she would not allow the darkness to claim her family again. But as she pulled them toward her, she felt the cold tendrils of shadows creeping across her legs, pulling her back. "No!" she shouted, struggling, surging against the tendrils. Shadows twisted, a cacophony of haunting whispers encircling her. "You think the light can save you? Look again." Each word wrapped around her fears like barbed wire. Memories surged forward, every moment of failure, abandonment, and regret flooding back to taunt her. "Face your truth, Clara, or lose everything." The entity coiled, emerging from the darkness behind the children with a grotesque snarl. The air crackled with tension as Clara faced it, heart hammering. It had been feeding off her insecurities, preparing to do what it did best, cause chaos. But Clara had tasted defeat and risen through it. She wheeled around to her children. They needed her now more than ever. "You need to trust me," she shouted above the din, keeping her eyes on them. "No matter what happens, fight with me." "Mom, we don't want to be alone," Emily cried, tears gleaming in her eyes as the shadows crept dangerously close. "I know, my love, but I'm here, and I'm strong enough for all of us," Clara roared, summoning the fire within her genuine love. As the entity lunged for them, Clara blazed her hands forward, light exploding from within her. "You don't own me, and you don't have my children." The brilliance intensified, streaming like sunlight through a broken window, flooding the space around them. The shadows recoiled, screams echoing in defiance. "Make it real, Clara! Let love be your shield!" the entity snarled, spiraling closer, desperately trying to reclaim lost ground. "Perhaps I've lost in the past," Clara bellowed back, tears of resolve streaming down her face, "but I will not lose again." With that, Clara willed the brightness around her to expand. Memories of laughter, joy, and every moment spent loving her children surged forward, coalescing into a radiant force. She felt the thrumming heartbeat of their collective strength intertwined with hers. The onslaught of brightness pushed the shadows further back, piercing the oppressive gloom that hung like a storm cloud. "You will not take my family," Clara shouted into the chaos, the words a battle cry against the encroaching darkness. The shadows writhed and convulsed, clawing at Clara with a ferocious hunger, but they were weakening against the light. Sam and Emily stepped forward, arms raised beside her. "Together!" they shouted in unison, amplifying the power their mother summoned. A wave of warmth rolled through them, each heartbeat syncing in harmony. Suddenly, the light erupted, illuminating every corner of the darkness in one brilliant flash like a supernova. The shadows screamed, vanishing like smoke in the wind, disintegrating into particles that floated away like forgotten dreams. Clara collapsed, exhaustion flooding her limbs, but relief flooded her heart as she looked at her children, their faces brightened by the glow. "We did it!" she gasped, pulling them tightly to her chest. "Mom, we believed in you," Emily whispered, clinging to her. "I'm so proud of you," Clara replied, her voice thick with emotion, warmth engulfing them. As they stood together, separated from the shadow's ruin, the ethereal light refracted through the air. Clara took a breath tentatively, realizing she was finally free. "Let's go home," she said, her heart swelling with love, knowing each step taken would be a mark of resilience. Behind them, the remnants of the darkness faded into nothingness, unable to claim the strength of their unity. And as they walked away from the chaos, Clara felt lighter. The weight of the shadows had vanished, revealing a path bright with possibility. Clara Jones had faced her truth. Armed with love and daring, she would carve out a life for herself and her children free of fear, their future bright and unwavering. But as they stepped into the new dawn, the remnants of their battle became a whisper on the wind, reminding them that light was always waiting just beyond the shadows. Now this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and keep the good vibes coming. And don't forget to flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this intense conclusion. Finally, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how Clara fought for her family. Don't wait even one more second. Join the journey and be part of the adventure.